Welcome back to the Listen to Reading Center, scholars. This is part 8 of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If you are on part 8, that means you should be on your character passport, the one with the leaves on it, on the second row. If you are still on your setting passport, exit this video and find another center. You should not be listening to part 8 if you haven't finished your setting passport. So, we're talking about characters, and when we left off, it was around Halloween time. It was the time leading up to Halloween, and Raleigh had been grounded because he and Greg had made a haunted house in Raleigh's basement. Now, here we go. Tuesday. Well, Raleigh's grounding is finally over, and just in time for Halloween, too. I went up to his house to check out his costume, and I have to admit I'm a little jealous. Raleigh's mom got him this night costume that's way cooler than his costume from last year. His night outfit came with a helmet, a shield, and a real sword and everything. I've never had a store-bought costume before. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to go as tomorrow night, so I'll probably just throw something together last minute. I figure maybe I'll bring back the toilet paper mummy again. But I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow night, so that might not be the smartest choice. In the past few years, the grown-ups in my neighborhood have been getting cranky about my lame costumes, and I'm starting to think it's actually having an effect on the amount of candy I'm bringing in. What are you supposed to be? A cowboy? Double baseball hats. But I don't really have time to put together a good costume because I'm in charge of planning the best route for me and Raleigh to take tomorrow night. This year, I've come up with a plan that gets us at least twice the candy we scored last year. Now we're at Halloween. This is a journal, so remember that each header is a different day. Halloween. About an hour before we were supposed to start trick-or-treating, I still didn't have a costume. At that point, I was seriously thinking about going as a cowboy for the second year in a row. But then Mom knocked on my door and handed me a pirate costume with an eye patch, a hook, and everything. Raleigh showed up around 6:30 wearing his night costume, but it didn't look anything like it looked yesterday. Raleigh's mom made all these safety improvements to it, and you couldn't even tell what he was supposed to be anymore. She cut a big hole in the front of the helmet so he could see better, and covered him up with reflective tape. She made him wear his winter coat underneath everything, and she replaced his sword with a glow stick. I grabbed my pillowcase and me and Raleigh started to head out. But Mom stopped us before we could get out the door. And she's saying, I want you to take Manny with you. Look how Manny's dressed too. Man, I should have known there was a catch when Mom gave me that costume. I told Mom there was no way we were taking Manny with us because we were going to hit up 152 houses in 3 hours. And plus, we were going to be on Snake Road, which is way too dangerous for a little kid like Manny. I should never have mentioned that last part, because the next thing I knew, Mom was telling Dad that he had to go along with us to make sure we didn't step foot outside our neighborhood. Dad tried to squirm out of it, but once Mom makes up her mind, there is no way you can change it. Before we even got out of our own driveway, we ran into our neighbor, Mr. Mitchell, and his kid, Jeremy. So, of course, they tagged along with us. Manny and Jeremy wouldn't trick-or-treat at any houses with spooky decorations on them. So that ruled out pretty much every house on our block. Dad and Mr. Mitchell started talking about football or something, and every time one of them wanted to make a point, they'd stop walking. Here they are walking along, the two little ones. The old man saying blah, blah, blah. And look at Greg's face. He doesn't look very happy. So we were hitting only about one house every 20 minutes. After a couple of hours, Dad and Mr. Mitchell took the little kids home. I was glad because that meant me and Raleigh could take off. My pillowcase was almost empty, so I wanted to make up as much time as possible. A little while later, Raleigh told me he needed a potty break. I made him hold off for another 45 minutes, but by the time we got to my grandma's house, it was pretty clear that if I didn't let Raleigh use the bathroom, it was going to get messy. Now, we're talking about characters, and one way that you can describe a character and figure out some character traits, at least personality traits, is how they respond to events in a story. Now, if Raleigh had to go to the bathroom and Greg wouldn't let him because he wanted to keep getting candy, and if Greg was angry at his dad for talking with the other man and slowing him down and his little brother, do you think that makes Raleigh selfish? I want you to respond to this in your journal. You can pause the video at this time and write one sentence about a personality trait that you think Greg has according to how he just reacted to this situation. All right, welcome back. You should have the answers to your question about Greg's personality based on how he responded to that event with trick-or-treating in your journal. At the top of your journal, it should also say listen to reading. Let's continue. So I told Raleigh if he wasn't back outside in 1 minute, I was going to start helping myself to his candy. That also tells me that Greg's a little bit selfish and greedy too. After that, we headed out on the road. But it was already 10:30, and I guess that's when most grown-ups decide Halloween is over. You can kind of tell because that's when they start coming to the door in their pajamas and giving you the evil eye. We decided to head home. We made a lot of time after Dad and Manny left, so I was pretty satisfied with how much candy we took in. Look how full his bag is now. When we were halfway home, this pickup truck came roaring down the street with a bunch of high school kids in it. The kid in the back was holding up a fire extinguisher, and when the truck passed by us, he opened fire. I have to give Raleigh credit because he blocked about 95% of the water with his shield. And if he hadn't done that, our candy would have gotten soaked. When the truck drove away, I yelled out something I regretted about 2 seconds later. Here he's saying, "We're calling the cops!" So, let's talk about how Raleigh reacted to the situation. Does that tell you something about Raleigh's personality? The fact that he held out his shield to save both of their candy? He could have just ran away. Pause the video and write one sentence that you realize about Raleigh's personality in your journal on the same page. All right, if you're back with us, that means that you've written a sentence about Raleigh's personality based on what he did to save his and Greg's candy. Now, let's begin again. The driver slammed on his brakes and turned his truck around. Me and Raleigh started running, but those guys were right on our heels. The only place I could think of that was safe was Grandma's house, so we cut through a couple of backyards to get there. Grandma was in bed already, but I knew she keeps a key under the mat on her front porch. Once we got inside, I looked out the window to see if those guys had followed us. And sure enough, they did. I tried to trick them into leaving, but they wouldn't budge. He's saying, "Well, I guess now that we're safe in our own house, you can't get us." But the teenagers don't look very happy. After a while, we realized the teenagers were going to wait us out, so we decided we were just going to have to spend the night at Grandma's. That's when we started getting cocky, making monkey noises at the teenagers and whatnot. Well, at least I was making monkey noises. Raleigh was kind of making owl noises. But I guess it was the same general idea. I called Mom to tell her that we were going to crash at Grandma's for the night, but Mom sounded really mad on the phone. She said it was a school night and that we had to get home right that instant. So that meant we were going to have to make a run for it. I looked out the window, and this time I didn't see the truck, but I knew those guys were hiding somewhere just trying to draw us out. So we snuck out the back door, hopped over Grandma's fence, and ran all the way to Snake Road. I figured our chances were better there because there aren't any streetlights. Snake Road is scary enough on its own without having a truckload of teenagers hunting you down. Every time we saw a car coming, we dove into the bushes. It must have taken us half an hour to go 100 yards. They looked pretty scared there. But believe it or not, we made it all the way home without getting caught. Neither one of us let our guard down until we got to my driveway. But right then, there was this awful scream, and we saw a big wave of water coming toward us. Man, I forgot all about Dad. We totally paid the price for it. When me and Raleigh got inside, we laid out all our candy on the kitchen table. The only things we could salvage were a couple of mints that were wrapped in cellophane and toothbrushes Dr. Garrison gave us. I think next Halloween I'll just stay home and mooch some Butterfingers from the bowl Mom keeps on the top of the refrigerator. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, on that same journal page that you've been working on, I want you to write a summary of what happened today in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Greg went trick-or-treating. Remember to use the 5 parts that we talked about in class. They are on the summary poster over on the window if you need them. I hope you enjoyed this part of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I look forward to reading to you again for part 9. Have a great day.